Okay, everybody, welcome back to another edition of UFTA Premium. And in this particular week's episode, we are going to talk about expanding the powers of the master grower. We're going to change fundamentally the last phase of the game, the final harvest phase. And we're going to implement the possibility of new tokens, which are virtue tokens and vice tokens. Okay, so in a previous video we talked about the master grower and expanding its powers so that it's a third action, but the two actions that precede it are free. Consequently, with its new value, we bumped up the price of the master grower to 60 tokens. Okay, so it's an impressive feat if you acquire the master grower, and in light of new developments, it's even more impressive because we're going to open up a new avenue of exploration with the game. The idea is we're going to try the possibility of virtue and vice tokens, and these are tokens that basically tell us whether or not the interactions in the game between growers or players were negative or positive, right? Or if they're neutral. So what we're looking for is anytime there's a trade or anytime there's a number 2 rolled where we bump something in the market either up or down, or inadvertently moving things in the market either up or down and making I guess basically what you'd call a value judgment based on what happens during the game. Okay? And so what does that look like in practice? Well, the idea is, none of these features open up until the very near the end of the game when people are able to afford the master grower. So what are the requirements? You have to have a master grower, and you also have to roll a die roll 6. Okay, so that's this one here. Die roll 6, and so if I own the master grower, then I have the possibility of assessing these hunger tokens. Now, I think for the time being, I don't have a separate set of virtue and vice tokens, and I may not have them because luckily the regular hunger tokens have thank you and I'm hungry on 2 sides. And so they basically have a negative and positive aura or vibe going on already. And so the idea is you take the tokens and you say you put them into a pile off the board or on the board, doesn't matter. The tokens say I'm hungry and then they say thank you, right? Okay, so what we're going to do then is, as the game progresses, we have a pile of negative tokens. They're all hungry. And then we have a pile of positive tokens. And as I'll demonstrate in the next game where we playtest, these tokens will accumulate over the game. Okay, so now I have a pile, and I have the master grower, so I'm sitting at the end of the game. If I roll a die roll 6, and I own the master grower, I suddenly have the power to go on the warpath and utilize destructive actions based on the number of vice tokens there are, or I could be saintly, right? If you visit your churches, I could be very saintly and I could be very generous, compassionate, kind, humble, and I can basically assist the other growers on their particular endeavors of growing vegetables and harvesting, using productive farm rolls, productive farm actions, right? Okay, so this is a great, I've always stated that UFTA has the ability to accommodate a whole range of human emotions, actions, and personalities, right? And so the idea is, with all that versatility, you can basically crescendo all of the swirling emotions and thoughts and ideas into a peak, right? A peak in emotions, using the Master Grower card and the die roll 6. It's not going to be certain whether they choose vices or virtues. And so it kind of depends, like most things in life, it depends on what actually happens. As you live your life, as you play the Yukta, whether or not there are more virtues than vices, right? And so, Ben Franklin had something to say about that, right? It's very hard to It's very hard to cultivate the virtues, right? Because it's just like a muscle you have to exercise, right? A lot of us fall by the wayside. We fall back in our tracks, fall back into old bad habits. So, which is nobody's fault, right? It's just kind of overwhelming. Anyway, I got off track. The idea is we're going to test this out. We're going to see how some of the gameplay works with the virtues and vices, and we're going to determine finally what the final grower can do. If nobody rolls a die roll 6 at the end, what we're going to do instead is we'll go into final harvest, and that's the phase where the people who own a master grower will decide whether to take the virtues or the vices path. Okay, so here we go. And again, this is all tentative and up in the air. It's not part of the official rules. This is just something I've come up with and would like to play test. And if you provide quality feedback, you can definitely help me out with suggestions or better ideas. Just let me know in the comments below. Okay, so here we go. Here's a 2. 2 is buying a card. Do I want to buy a card? Yeah. Why not? Okay. Oh, now let's demonstrate our point. Time out. So we rolled a 2. This gives us the opportunity to move something. Nobody has a crop at this particular moment. So, there's really 2 states that we're dealing with, right? We're dealing with potentialities that haven't occurred yet, and then we're dealing with actualities. Okay? So the potential of the squash is that it moves up. Now notice that when the squash moves up, because I'm choosing to move it, it also bumps another item down in the market. And so if that other item happens to be something that someone else owns, that would in fact constitute a vice token, which you would lay in this particular region of the board, and they would accumulate there. Okay? So let's say in this particular game, we've had about 4 of each. Now I don't know if these should be in a separate container. Maybe they should. Who knows? Okay, so there's thank you tokens and there's the I'm hungry tokens. So we're grateful, of course, for food in the stomach. Okay, so here we go. Here's a 1. Plague card, that's no good. There's a 3. Yeah, we're not going to gamble. 4 is productive. Okay, 4 is productive, so we'll just do what we would normally do. This particular point in the game, it looks like we need to keep harvesting. Put some potatoes out. We're also going to put a Finderdoodle out. Notice that the Finderdoodles, again, to deploy them is a free activity. In previous videos, I think I stated it was an action, But upon further insight, further study, it seemed like the game is better off if we make these fender doodles a free activity. So we're going to place it on the item. Again, that confers another either 5 or 10 tokens based on whether or not I promote the fender doodle into an adult. Okay. So we've got keys coming on board. And we'll pay 2. In fact, I'll just skip the paying for now because that's unimportant. We just want to figure out what's going to happen with these vice and virtue tokens. Okay, so here's a 2. Yet again, I have another opportunity. So there's the potatoes. Now, what you have to figure out in the game is what side do you think is going to win, virtues or vices? It depends on what you do. So if I decide I don't want their potatoes to be as valuable, I'm going to move them down. And that, of course, is going to create a vice token because that was a defensive maneuver. Okay, so I'll add to the pile. But there might be times when you want to help everyone out. You know, that's the beauty of UFTA. There's a tremendous degree of flexibility here. Unlike me, I can't do anything. Yeah, I'm not going to be doing acrobats soon. But I can tell you safely that UFTA has such a wide range of colors to it. I mean, the color scheme is vast. And so, you know, it's hard to talk about all the possibilities in UFTA. And there's many, I'm sure, that I haven't figured out because I just haven't spent enough time with the game. From these videos, it may seem like that's all I do, but the honest truth is, you know, you could set UFTA to supercomputers, and they could run the stats on this. And I'm not sure that it will ever come to a conclusion that UFTA could be solved, right? Which is, you know, from my standpoint, that's a great. That means I've done my job because the idea is. A solved game isn't worth playing. If the game is solved, then you kind of feel like that's a huge letdown. You went to Woodstock, you let your hair down, but you know, there was a rain out. So that's no good. Anyway. Alright, so here we go. Oh, so I did roll a 2. And I decided to move the potatoes down, so that's good. Moving on. Gambling's not going to happen. 6. All right. Here's another case study, right? So we have potatoes in the corner there. And so if the potatoes... I'm sorry, we have the 6... what am I getting at? The 6 token. The 6 roll. And so that means sabotage is available. Now notice that this isn't the final battle. This isn't the, you know, the sort of Armageddon scenario where we have, you know, somebody owns the master grower. They don't own the master grower. So they're still in regular attack, sneak and chisel attack mode. Okay? And so what they're going to do is, it looks like we could raid. Notice that we could raid because we have an adversity card. If we didn't have this adversity card, then the possibility of raid doesn't exist. We would simply remove or return items. Okay, so what we're going to do instead then is we're going to sabotage over here. Probably we're going to take 5 tokens off. Notice that we don't keep it, but in fact we're returning it or removing it. Sorry, we're removing it from gameplay. Back into the bank she goes. Okay, so that takes care of that. But we're still going to farm on our turn. In fact, we're going to use our second action and we'll promote our fender doodle so that we'll get 10 points out of it instead of 5. Okay, so now we're looking good. Here's a 2. Now what do I do with the 2? I could move those potatoes down again. All right, so we're adding once again to the vices, the negative pile, right? Okay, so here's a 1. Collect 10 tokens, nice. Okay, so we'll collect 10 tokens. Now notice how this was neither a vice nor a virtue. It was just a matter of luck. We collected 10 tokens. So I want to make sure we understand that we're crystal clear. The only time there's a question of virtue versus vices is when there's interactions with others in the game, right? You know, there's a lot of nasty games out there. They're not particularly pleasant. And so I'm trying to fill that void with aspects of gameplay that are more affirming and more kind of positive toward each other. You still get the back and forth of competition, right? You still get that, but lingering in the back of your mind are always going to be these possibilities of exploring, virtuous territory, where the prescriptions of our holy books, that you want to follow are still there. Treat people with kindness and dignity and respect, and you'll be treated well in return, right? Or what's the Beatles phrase? The love you take is equal to the love you make, right? Pretty wise words. Okay, so the love we're spreading tonight is virtues and vices with the master grower. Okay, so here's a 1. So remove 2 crops. Can't do it. Oh, I could do it. Yeah, okay, so here's a case where, we had this fender doodle. It's worth a total of 10 tokens, or basically 2 crops. So when this says remove 2 crops from the field, that's what we're going to remove instead. Saving our potatoes, but losing our extra 10 tokens, which is fine. We can afford to do that. Okay, so here's a 4. Will be productive. Squash. All right. I'm going to say the game is mostly done. Okay, planting squash. 6 is another sabotage opportunity. Now we could sabotage twice. We've got potatoes and squash. Now, I'm going to do something unique in this particular circumstance. I'm going to say that the squash and the potatoes are in fact next to each other, right? So, what do I do in this case? Because I'm moving potatoes, that's the crop of an opponent. I'm moving it up, so that's a virtue, right? I put that on the thank you side. But then I took the squash and I moved the squash down. Okay, so then I put a token on the vice side, right? I'm hungry. Well, I think in this case it's a neutral territory, and so since there's a net neutral gain, there's no gain, there's no negative, there's no positive. Then I would think we just refrain from handing out tokens at all and just let it be, right? And so what we're going to do is remove both of them, and there's no token. That to me seems like the best way to resolve it. Let me know if you think otherwise. Okay, so here's a 1. Nope, return all crops. Gambling's not going to happen. Cucumber, kale, peas, potatoes, carrots. 4 is productive. Squash on the wrong one. So there's 10. Okay, so we got broccoli. Alright, and we're going to explore using this adversity card. Now, let's explore another scenario. Let's say, this person owns the master grower. But let's say we have farm crews, right? So, again, if we look at the farm crews, right, and we look at the back, it says able to complete 2 free field actions, right? Well, what it really means is the secondary function of the farm crew is to battle off saboteurs. So whenever there's a die roll 6 controlled by an opponent, the farm crew leaps into action and thwarts the efforts of the saboteurs. Okay, and so bearing that in mind, what does it mean then when somebody has the master grower and they activate their army? They go on the warpath. They amass a war party and go on the offensive. So what does that mean if everybody owns a farm crew? Well, I would say simply that the master grower trumps the farm crew, but there should be some leeway with the farm crews. And at this point, I haven't quite figured this all out. This is where the playtesting and the grinding. Anybody that's a grinder out there, you've grinded in your video games or on your skateboards or what have you. This is where the kind of the meat and potatoes work lies. Yeah, should the farm crew completely repel the master grower? And I would think not. And we'll just see what happens. Okay, so this grower is rolled a 6, right? And now we need to kind of establish what does it look like when the master grower goes on the warpath. What does that look like? Well, what we do is we go up here and we look at the virtue and vices. In this particular case, they want to use the vices category, which is probably going to be the more common route. Because not everybody's applying for sainthood, right? So here's the deal. We've got 5 tokens, which means there are going to be 5 total sneak and chisel attack actions performed by this particular grower who owns the master grower. So, and what are those going to be? Well, those can be, how can we deploy those, right? Well, they can be distributed across multiple opponents. It's really up to the discretion of the grower to decide what to do. So in this case, for instance, I'm going to use one of these virtue tokens. I'll use it up. And I assume we're going to return it to the bank. I'm not really sure if they should go somewhere, but I think to the bank. The potatoes, they're going to take the potatoes. Okay. Then they're going to take another action. And in this particular case, I'm thinking you should be able to do something with these piles of crops that are laying by the wayside. They're already harvested. I'm thinking you can probably just, if you can't take them, the only thing you can take is during the raid action, right? If you don't have raid actions available, you can nonetheless remove a crop from their harvested ends, which means you're going to be eating into their possibility of scoring bonuses from 4 crop combos, 5 crop combos, and the oeuf de grande, right? Making it much more difficult. Okay, so I'm going to take their stuff. I'm going to take this one. So there's another token gone. There's 2 more. I'm going to flip a field back over. That's a return, right? Notice that's not a raid or a reveal or reverse. It's a return because we're returning it to a previous state, unheralded. So then that takes care of that. And then we're going to do, let's say, a reveal. So let's say I did a reveal, and they had to show me that, in fact, this grower has chard in their weight cue tray. Why would I want to know that? Well, you may not want to know specifically what chard is, but the idea is, UFTA depends on gaining knowledge. That's basically what you're doing the entire game. You're trying to gather information, and then you're trying to make the best decisions based on what you know. Okay. All right, so that's that. Moving on. So now what happened though? We had farm crews, and the farm crews were inactive, right? They didn't do anything to ward off the saboteurs. So maybe that aspect of gameplay isn't available. Maybe the master grower is simply an all-powerful sort of a trump card, and then you just go from there. I don't know always. All I'm doing, like my quest, the goal and motivation for me is to just share UFTA with as many people as possible, with the hopes of spreading the maximum joy and happiness to everyone, right? From a human flourishing standpoint, that's kind of that's what we want to do, Okay, so the farm crews, I think, are just going to be unable to repel the saboteurs of the master grower. But there might be cases where we could make things interesting. Who knows? Maybe it depends on the virtues and vices tokens. Maybe if there's more virtue tokens, then you can ward off attacks. See, maybe this is how new ideas can arise sometimes, right? When you're just playing around, you might come up with new ideas, new conceptions. And the idea is, why don't we decide that the virtue tokens are mostly a defensive maneuver, meaning that if there's more virtues than there are vices, then the farm crew can in fact repel the saboteurs. Fascinating stuff. So it's really, how do you feel about something happening to you, right? It basically takes the underpinning of civilization, the do unto others, right? And it turns it on its side and says, hey, if you don't want this done to you, you could contribute in a positive fashion during the game, right? And see, that's these are the aspects and avenues of exploration that get me super excited. Like, why does this guy keep rambling on about board game? Right? Well, it's like life, right? And you have trials and tribulations, you have struggle and adversities, but we want you to win. We want the God and the machine to help us out. We want to draw that sword in Harry Potter so we can kill the snake. Okay? So we're trying to tilt things, UFTA ultimately is about decision making. It's about trying to make a series of decisions that are the best that you can possibly make, given the luck or circumstances that you happen to be in. Gotta make some lemonade. Okay, so here we go. Gambling's not gonna happen. 6 sabotage. Yeah, we can sabotage. Yeah, so here's an interesting case. If I have the master grower, am I subject to the farm crew sabotaging my adversity card? And I would say, if you've made it all the way to the master grower, the implication is you've succeeded on every level. That UFTA, all the obstacles that UFTA has thrown at you, you've managed them. and you come out on the other side with smooth sailing. Okay, and so I'm going to say that the farm crew cannot sabotage the master grower owner. So that's off the table. So instead they're going to sabotage this person over here. They're going to take 5 tokens. Now notice that in UFTA we still have negotiations. You can still negotiate out of this if you don't want this to happen. You know, offer up something of value elsewhere, right? Okay, so here's the 5. It goes by the wayside. Then we'll disc. Okay, so we used up our vices and virtues. Notice that that can happen during the game. They're just going to build up again for the next person. So it might seem kind of anticlimactic, right? So here's a 1. 2 crops. Tomatoes, carrots, corn, and beans. 4. Okay. Well, I think that's going to do it. You know, this was an interesting play test. We established a few interesting rules, and it's exciting to see where this is going to go. Right? Again, you know, this is all tentative stuff. None of it's set in stone. There's no 10 commandments of UFTA. There's just all there is trial and error, cause and effect, and we're just trying to forge a way ahead in the reality of UFTA, right? And I think that's going to do it. Okay, everybody. Well, I hope you enjoyed that. Until next time, keep on playing UFTA, and I'll see you then. Bye, everybody.